Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Scaling Ethereum 2024 Gnosis Chain Workshop, Build UX Simplified dApps on Gnosis Chain and Learn About Blobs. Joining us today is Vanshika, who will be taking us through this session. And with that, I'll pass it over to Vanshika to get the session started.
Thank you, Rory, for an amazing introduction. Hi, everyone. Good evening, good afternoon. I'm Vanshika from Gnosis Chain, and I welcome you to Scaling Ethereum's workshop for 2024. I've been working at Gnosis Chain as development manager slash engineer, and today I will be talking about how you can build UX simplified dApps on Gnosis Chain, and you'll also be learning about blobs with our special guest, Philip, who is head of infrastructure at Gnosis Chain. So before beginning about all the the prizes and as hackers what you guys will be doing, I would just give you a quick introduction about what Gnosis Chain is. So Gnosis Chain is one of the first Ethereum side chain, and technically it's basically a layer one chain which is completely run by the community, secured by around 200 k validators all around the world. So you require just like one GNO to run your own validator node, which is pretty cool. Now, another thing which is very cool about Gnosis Chain is that it's the only L1 chain which allows you to pay the gas fees in its own native stablecoin, which is your xDAI token. We'll be talking more like how you can get xDAI token if you're a developer trying to develop a Gnosis chain, but that's one of the greatest features. Gnosis Chain began back in 2017, so it's been pretty for very long here in the blockchain industry, and it began as a proof of authority chain. But then in 2022, as we all know, that Ethereum merge happened. Similarly, Gnosis Chain also merged the Gnosis Beacon chain to kind of align with the Ethereum's architecture. So what this would mean for the Gnosis chain future is that all the EIP implementations that keep happening in the Ethereum community, Gnosis chain would also be capable to integrate in its own chain, because we have like its own consensus layer, and you have its own GBC layer as well. So moving on to the prizes, right? Because I think all the hackers are very excited to know about what are the bounty tracks and how they can develop these cool dApps on chain. So a very key focus this time in scaling Ethereum hackathon is going to be around the consumer focused products, and which is why also this workshop is going to be very precisely focused on how you can simplify the overall UX, because in Web3, as we all know, it's kind of difficult. There is a lot of things that happen on front end and then on back end, but then for users it's very important that you give them a good enhanced experience. So of course one of the key tracks is going to be for consumer focused product on Gnosis chain, and we are gonna be having like three prizes. So the first prize is for 2000 USDC, second is for 1500 USDC, and third is going to be for 1001. Now, moving on to the second track, we have building an integration with Gnosis Space. So I will be giving you a bit of information around what Gnosis Pay is, and how would you be able to build on top of it. But this is going to be mainly around a financial payment system, right? Like Gnosis Pay is basically a bridge between doing an actual blockchain transaction around POS systems. And we would be giving up to 1000 USDC to two teams, so total 2000 USDC in prizes. Moving on, we have also a bounty for building the developer tool and library integration. So as we all know that developer experience is very important for any blockchain community, we are also trying to give a bit of focus on there. So if you are a person who loves hacking around these great implementations and proof of concepts, then this is your place. Like, go ahead and build something out on Gnosis Chain for Gnosis Chain developers. So it's going to be by developers for developers. Next one is a cross-chain application using Hashi. Hashi is like a block header bridge. I will be talking more about this in upcoming slides, but that's another one that we have for someone who is interested to build cross-chain applications, cross-chain messaging, swaps, etc. And last but not the least, we have somewhat an external sponsor as well. So we have Fileverse here with Gnosis Chain, who is also like natively deployed on Gnosis Chain as well. And this is going to be around the social consumer experiences. So you can build something on Frame, Lens, and utilize the Fileverse Heartbeat SDK. Again, this is again mentioned on the Scaling Ethereum's website, that how you can utilize it, and all the important documentation is mentioned out. But they're doing a very great thing around the social aspect of Web3, and how you can utilize to give like amazing experiences on Frames of Firecaster. All right, so that's your bounties. That's the tracks that we have this year. So total $11,000 in the whole bounties. And moving on, let's talk about the scaling part of our session. So I would call it Ethereum verse approach to the scaling. So you might have a question that how Gnosis and Ethereum are connected, right? So this whole idea is that you have the tooling and the dev mindshare of Ethereum and a battle-tested Ethereum stack. So the entire beacon chain concept is somewhat very important here, because Ethereum has its own beacon chain, and then Gnosis has its beacon chain, and somewhat it connects with the Ethereum stack as well to kind of give the same sort of experience. But then you don't have ETH as a gas fees, right? Which is a very important problem to kind of discuss, that when you talk about scaling layer twos, you have ETH as gas fees and you have settlement layer on Ethereum. But this is not the scenario here, because Gnosis is not dependent on Ethereum to post a transaction. So you could consider it as a horizontal architecture, as a scaling architecture. And if we had to talk about how L2s versus L1 scaling solution would work, and technically how a sidechain as Gnosis would work, right? So as I mentioned, right, L2s consider Ethereum as settlement layer. You pay the gas fees in ETH, and it's very volatile, right? The security is another important aspect for your entire L2. Like, you are having your assets on L2, you need to bridge them across on L1 or vice versa. And that is a very important thing to kind of consider here, that when you're thinking about building this user experience for users of Web3 and dApps, you don't want people to be wondering that, okay, on what I'm on like L2 chain, like I need to probably bridge something out from an L1 and then being able to use it, right, on my dApp, or like get my tokens in. So that kind of also makes this entire procedure a bit worrisome. I'm not saying L2 is bad. I'm just saying that a UX might be a bit risky part to kind of think of, that how would you actually manage a newbie person or a new person incoming, and they don't have an exact understanding. All they know is about Ethereum or any other chain, but they don't have exact idea about how L2s work. So you kind of would put them into a situation where they might wonder how the decentralization and security happens, and overall you question the blockchain trilemma. Now, another thing that has been talked a lot in these days is the DA layer, which is a data availability layer. There have been modular blockchains which are evolving, and they mention that they offer the cheap DA layers. Sometimes, again, your gas spikes can happen, and posting of these transactions, or like the call data and all together, can be pretty much hectic task for you. So if the DA layer is expensive, then your overall transaction fees are still going to spike. So another thing to kind of look about that, okay, how would a dApp be able to utilize a full L2 scaling solution, right? This is, by the way, I love Reddit, and I love using Twitter also. So I found out this amazing conversation around why don't you use an L2 from a user. And he kind of did mention that if you want to get cheaper fees, but you do not want to kind of ship away this whole idea of letting your security and the decentralization part compromised, then Gnosis Chain is the place to be, because that's the best alternative out there to Ethereum. We don't have to have ETH, but then you're still able to utilize a lot of amazing dApps and get like amazing consumer experiences. So that brings us to a conclusion that you don't need to change layers, and your users don't need to know that what kind of layer they are on, like what kind of chain they are. We have heard a lot of these terms that the future is multi-chain, or you can kind of say there's like a chainless experience. So it's somewhat like this, that how in Web 2 we don't really think about that what is being used on front end or back end. It's somewhat this, that we have to bring the users to a specific point where they don't worry about thinking that how am I supposed to send a transaction cross chain, or think from this perspective that I need to bridge my tokens because I am on L2. So they should not be technically aware in the sense that they need to do something about it, right? So you can scale, but without these layers. And that's what Gnosis Chain is also kind of trying to help out here for Web3 users. So as a hacker, as a developer, I think this should be your mindset that if someone was using your cool application, then they wouldn't want to worry about all this having Ethereum, having ETH on their wallet address, or like, using maybe even a private key or MetaMask. The reason I'm saying this is because in the upcoming slide, in the upcoming demo that I have made for all the developers who are watching this, is I have not used anything on MetaMask. Like there is nothing to do with MetaMask, and you can still do a transaction on chain. And mind you, it's not smart accounts related. Although one of the pointers to talk about here is that you can definitely use EIP 437 in your application on your dApp that you would be building on Gnosis Chain. We have amazing support from some of the coolest AA provider in the space, like Safe especially, and you could be using Pimlico, you could be using Gelato along with it. And recently we also integrated Zero Dev, AA Stack. So it's cool. We have Particle Network. All of this is mentioned on our actually new docs, which is like a V2 version. And it's extremely cool that you check out that, and you can also implement the 437 aspect of your dApp as well, and send transactions from smart accounts for gasless experience. But I wanted to keep it simple, so I didn't really use smart accounts. That's that. I think I've talked enough about gas, and I've talked about validators, and how you don't need like huge amount of ETH to run your own validator node. All you need is like one GNO token, just like a staking token that you have. So moving on, it's time for the quick demo. So I'm gonna be taking you to my, let me see, my Vercel link. Okay. Okay, I think everyone should be able to watch this now. Awesome. So currently I'm logged in actually, and this is my demo account, which I almost use for every single thing that I built. So don't mind the name or anything. So this is built using Dynamic. Dynamic is basically a social auth provider in Web3 space, and they're pretty cool, very cool. What you are able to exactly do, and I will be showing that obviously, but what you're able to do with this is that you log in with your socials, which could be starting from email to Twitter to any other email account that you have, even Discord. It's very versatile, honestly. I have kept it to email, and then there is another one for Farcaster. But the whole idea around this is that you get an EOA and you still sign your transaction, but you don't use MetaMask at all, right? And this is actually sort of a part, you could say, that even in account abstraction sort of applications, you always see that there's like a social login aspect of it, right? We have been talking about the pass keys for signatures, session keys for saving your signature for like, let's say about 30 minutes, or you just like add a session and you don't have to sign again and again. And of course, then you have the gasless part of it, and paying with like stable coins of is USDC and USDT on the chains that it supports. But the whole idea of this demo is that you can understand that it's very easy for building UX simplified dApps for the users, and it doesn't have to be very complicated. As long as you're able to have this amazing idea, you have the smart contract, and you deploy it on Gnosis Chain. So I already have my smart contract deployed. It's on mainnet, so the chain ID is obviously 100, and I have a working GitHub link as well for this, which I will possibly be adding in the chat. So you can kind of go through it and figure out how the things are working behind the scenes. But let's just move on to the exact demo. So right now, just like I'm going to click on login, and we'll be continuing it via Google. Okay, so this is my demo account, and I will be just simply logging just like how I would do it in any Web2 application. Okay. Now this whole you can say widget is being offered by Dynamic itself. So I didn't have to like spend a lot of time, because what I wanted people to understand is how you can just simply even show this in your main application. You don't need to build the UI components out, because there are great providers in the space who are helping you out with these custom tools. So they have this amazing UI component to kind of show your dynamic profile. I already have my chains selected as Gnosis, and this is my account address. Okay, so this one. So honestly, if you want to see, I will show you in my blockchain explorer. But I get my EOA account using just my email, and now I would be doing mint your dynamic NFT. So this is not extremely dynamic, but every time I mint any token, I mint my NFT token, I get the token ID on the NFT itself as a part of SVG. So I have a custom SVG, which is designed as well, and it has this whole concept of Gnosis chain. So I will be showing that, but you should definitely see the gas estimation. And let me show you that how much I have right now in my balance, and I will mint this. Okay, and I will confirm the transaction. So again, as I mentioned, so what I've done is initially, because I had done my transaction, if you are a new person who would be signing up on this Versal application, you would be required to do like this two-step process where you will be getting an email, which is like you can say sort of a private key, but not really a private key, which it is only valid until like 15 minutes. So you have to validate your transaction using that particular set of code, and then sign the transaction using a passkey. So I have saved my passkey, which is my touch ID. So I'm going to just select this profile and use my touch ID. I'm not entering any password or anything. Okay. And then what you should see is that the transaction is being processed on chain. Okay, I'll let this happen. And then let's wait for a couple of minutes, and it's done. You get the transaction hash. So if I click in here, it's basically an embedded link actually for the blockchain Scout, where I get the transaction hash exactly. And right now it's still in pending state, but it will just take like 2 seconds for this to finalize, and you'll be able to like see the minted NFT. Okay. So just look at the transaction piece. Oh yeah, and it's done, the success, and the confirmed within like 5.253 seconds. So very cool, right? Now I'm going to show you my dynamic NFT. Okay, so this is my transaction. Okay, so I just minted this token. This was the most recent token that I just minted out. Okay, it's called BNFT, and this is the description that I have. Now you should look at this. You should look that I've used like this whole SVG file, and it's kind of printing this thing as well as the token ID. So every time I am minting and I'm getting a new token ID using the token URI, it kind of changes. So I have done this transaction, I think like more than, yeah, I've done it like a lot of times, right? So every time I mint it, my token ID would get minted. This is the one that I did in afternoon, and I have a different owner for this. So this is like a dynamic SVG. Now, let me tell you one thing about dynamic SVGs, that they are much more, I would say, they're a bit more costly comparatively to the normal NFTs that you store on IPFS, because you're not kind of changing anything on chain. But this is like minting, but as well as your whole SVG formats, like it kind of like generates the SVG and then mints it out. So there's like two kind of things happening behind the scenes. Obviously, you don't do a generate SVG, but when you mint it, it automatically calls the generate SVG function that I have in my smart contract and mints everything out for you. So the fact being it's a dynamic NFT, which means I could even like write any other text if I had to, and it could be printed on top of my NFT. So this whole thing kind of like, if you see, the fees is like pretty cheap, and I was like able to do it in like very less amount of xDAI token. So on this demo itself, I have, by the way, linked the Gnosis chain faucet, but we have two faucets. One is for testnet and this one is for the mainnet. So you can get, I think, 0.01 xDAI every single week. So if you're someone who would be building on Gnosis chain on mainnet, and you require more than this token, then there is our Discord server which you can join, and we will definitely make sure that you have the funds to kind of test things out. But obviously, you can also check out the mainnet, sorry, the testnet faucet. So both of the faucet, like if you feel it's not enough, then we are there to help you out, or any other queries that you might have. So that's that. It's sort of a very simple proof of concept that I created for people to understand that dynamic SVG, minting that token, minting the ERC721 token on chain, and then making sure that you don't have like a lot of Ethereum or xDAI, but you don't have to like pay hefty amount of gas fees. All of this is like part of, I would say, UX, right? And plus, on top of it, I didn't have to sign transactions the way I would do it in MetaMask, right? And there's like a whole pop-up. I have my Touch ID. So it kind of makes the entire process even more secure, because no one else on behalf of me can do this transaction, because this passkey is kind of saved in my browser, you could say. And until unless I validated it, no one would be able to use it. So yeah, that's the demo part of it. Now let me bring you to move on to the next part. So I believe Philip is here. Philip is our head of infrastructure, and I would love to invite him because he's going to be giving some of the cool updates on the Denkin upgrade that we did on 11th of March. We kind of did two days before the Ethereum, so I think that's very cool. And it's time for some blob action. So Philip, go on.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so let's talk a bit about blobs, I guess, which are the main idea, I guess, or the main feature of the Denkun upgrade. If you can go to the next slide, that would be nice. But in general, so there's this EIP 4844, which is proto-lang sharding. So basically it allows you to post data on chain. Well, not really on chain, but basically it's ephemeral data, so it stays for 2 weeks. And this is very useful for scaling Ethereum through layer 2 chains. The nice thing about it is that basically they are, well, it's just arbitrary data. So you can post anything, and it's not just for layer 2s, which of course makes a lot of sense, because if it was specifically for layer 2s, then new technology, for example, could not be adapted for it. So it's basically anything you can or you want post on chain, and it just works. So blob transactions are type 3 transactions. So basically they are exactly the same as they were previously. So type 2 transactions that we had with EIP 1559. Except, of course, they add blobs. So there are two new fields, which are the max fee per blob gas. So basically, fees to define how much you spend for blobs, and version hashes, which is a technical term for basically how blobs are encoded, let's say. And to demonstrate this, we worked on a small demo that is called blob.fm. So I'm just going to share my screen. Oh, I can't. Yeah, okay. Should work now. here. All right, can you see? I guess yes. So blobfm, basically there's two parts, which is like a radio where we put radio or basically podcasts on chain technically, but that data only stays for 2 weeks, which is why actually right now nothing plays because that data got expired, which is actually very important in this case because we don't want that data to stay forever, right? So the general idea is that for Ethereum right now, data stays on there forever, so the chain only grows. And this is bad for scaling because, of course, everyone has to store the data, and then at some point, well, you always have to buy new hard drives or SSDs or whatever to store more and more data, and we don't want that. So for layer 2s, it is generally enough to keep that data for 2 weeks so that you can build proofs and whatever. And after that, you can delete that data so that that the data used by L2s is actually capped. So you can never go above a certain amount. This demo sadly doesn't work anymore, but we still have a gallery where actually anyone can create blobs themselves. So I'm not going to go through that flow right now, but you can just try it yourself by uploading a file. And here you can actually see blobs that were posted by random normal users. So you can see that it was posted by this address in this transaction. And so one of these transactions can be seen on Block Scout, for example. So if you go to the details, you can actually see that it's a type 3 transaction, so EIP 4844. And this is actually also a transaction that interacts with a contract. So that's proof that basically it's exactly the same type of transaction than before. So you can still interact with contracts, call functions, emit logs, or whatever a normal contract would do. But in addition to that, you have blobs that you can find here. So this is the hash, so the version hashes that you can find in the field. All blobs have the same exact size, which is 131,072 bytes. So this image, for example, is probably a bit smaller than that, but the last bytes will be empty and you have to pay for all of them. That's kind of the point of blobs. On Gnosis Chain, you have 1 blob per block. Well, that's a target. So in average, you will have 1 blob per block. Technically, you can go to 2, but then the fees will go up. So the equilibrium will be 1 blob per block. So Block Scout actually was nice enough to implement like a view function for blobs. So in this case, you can actually see that it's an image. And you can click on it and you can see that this blob was actually posted on chain. So yeah, exactly. So it's this one that was posted through blob.fm. And you can find the transaction and the content of the blog posted here. So that's the general idea. You can give it a go on Gnosis Chain, so mainnet or Shadow, which is our testnet, or even Sepolia, which is, of course, the Ethereum mainnet. And here's a small FAQ about how blobs actually work and some documentation. And you can even find maybe a link here about how to actually post blobs on chain. So this can be awesome to be kind of creative and invent new things you can do with blobs, knowing that posting pictures is kind of abusing it already. So it was not really the idea. The main idea, of course, was to scale Ethereum, but still it is arbitrary data, so you can do whatever you want with it. So yeah, I think that's it for blobfm. So I'll stop sharing the screen. Maybe we can go back to the slides.
Right. I think people like the blobfm thing. That's very cool. Awesome. So I'm gonna get back. I know we are short on time, but let's just I'll just take like maybe 5 minutes more and just give you a bit more about what's happening next in Gnosis ecosystem. So we announced the Gnosis 3.0 vision. That is this whole blog that you can read about it. But as I mentioned about Gnosis paper and Hashi and everything, So this entire idea about Gnosis kind of transforming into more of a payments and open financial infrastructure is now coming into life. We are kind of focused on like these 4 of these in-house products, you could say, which is Gnosis Pay, Circle's UBI, which is around universal banking income, Hashi, again around the bridge that we had talked about earlier, and the Gnosis wallet, which is work in progress. So you can definitely kind of take a look and just see like what's being built. Moving on, as I mentioned, like Gnosis chain began pretty much Gnosis began pretty much long back from 2017. So this is like what's happening today and how things started working out. So Chiono was born in 2017. Then we had Safe, which was basically the multi-sig wallet that we all know. And obviously then following from CowSwap, then the Gnosis chain actually coming into the picture with the whole merging. And then we have the Gnosis Pay now, which is again, it's somewhat a product that's kind of working in working condition, and it's I think being supported in European regions. So what is Gnosis Pay? Well, it's basically around things are around decentralized payment network, but Gnosis Pay is basically a non-custodial Visa card. So what you can do is you can spend your crypto token across like all these amazing, shops for shopping and multiple things that you do with any Visa card. So the whole idea is that you remove this blocker between the actual payment system versus the blockchain, right? Because right now the whole architecture looks like you kind of off-ramp it and then you convert it, your crypto to fiat, and then be able to use it. But we took down this entire blocker, this entire gap, and we created this whole real world payment system, which is very much focused on how people can just simply use it without worrying about any of these things around payments and around like how the merchants are going to be taking care of it. And everything is being built on Gnosis chain. So that's the base layer for entire Gnosis Pay payment network and the Gnosis Pay cards. We are using Safe for account abstraction. So if you want to check out Gnosis Pay, I have the links mentioned in the last slide. So you can take a look. And if you are from Europe and you think like you want to apply for it, then definitely go ahead. You can do a KYC and apply for the Gnosis Pay Visa card. Right. So I think that's it from my end. It was an amazing session, and I hope everyone got a chance to learn more about what Gnosis Chain is and what general Gnosis ecosystem is about, what we are up to, and how you can actually build useful applications, especially if you see Gnosis Pay, if you see even Blob FM, right? I think there's a lot to learn from these kind of tools out there that you can utilize it for better consumer experiences and better Web3 users. So thank you so much, everyone, for joining today. And I hope that you all have a good time hacking for this like whole month hackathon, and all the best for all the submissions.
Awesome. Cheers. Thank you, Vanshika and Philip. And yeah, there was a question. Can you share the okay, no, Philip is like he's responding. Yeah, if there are any questions, please feel free to take yourself off mute and ask now or type in the chat. We can spend a little bit, maybe like a minute or two. And if they're not, this is a dynamic account abstraction. I'll just make sure that BBB, your question gets answered before closing. Yeah, Vanshika, there was can you share the repo?
Yes,
Oh,
I've
okay.
done.
No, thank you. Cool.
Okay.
So, okay, cool. Yeah, I think that's it then. Yeah, if there are no other questions, then yeah, thank you both
Okay,
Vanshika, Philip, for the great presentation and demo. Oh,
yeah, sorry. The quick question about Gnosis Pay. Can I build like in a test mode, or how can I maybe you have any accounts for testing mode?
No, we actually don't have anything in testing mode, honestly, because you have to go through KYC. Okay. So everything is basically on mainnet, but you can check if you're a resident of the supported network of the supported countries for Gnosis Pay, then you can definitely apply for it. Okay, so you
No,
can
I'm not.
check it out. Yeah, but
Okay.
unfortunately, yeah, we don't have anything on testnet for this, because if you are eligible for it, you get your card right at your home and you can use it, start using it.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
Nice, awesome. Cool. Yeah, well, I think we're kind of a little over time now, but again, thank you all for attending, and thank you for the great presentation and workshop. And yeah, if there are any questions, you can definitely reach out to the team and the partner channel in Discord. But yeah, hopefully everybody has a great rest of the day, and we're looking forward to seeing you all tomorrow for more workshops and the Scaling Ethereum 2024 kickoff. So thanks, everybody. Have a good one.
So thanks everyone for joining.